Hey, folks, welcome to hello, testing. Everybody hearing me okay? Just got everything all hooked back up over here at the studio. Want to make sure we're running well. Just got back home a couple of hours ago to the home studio, getting all set up. I got about 10 seconds. I got to hook us up to the server over on the radio station. So how's everybody doing tonight? Can anybody hear me? Am I okay? Testing 1, 2. It looks like I'm not putting out sound. I'm wondering, let me double check my settings. Settings, audio, built-in, blah, 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 blah. Yep, it's working. How about that? Okay. Loud and clear. Fantastic. Thank you, Leslie. And I put everything back where it is. This is not a laptop and not a portable computer, but it is lightweight enough that when I go up to Andy's and I do work up there, I take this whole kit and caboodle with me. Not the soundboards and stuff like that, but I take the big computer and I tuck it under my arm and we're off. So when I come back, I can hear you on FB, says Donna Renee Ivy. Thank you, Donna. I appreciate that. Hey, Niall. Good to see you, brother. Matthew Finn. Master Finn. Good to see you here tonight. Let me get us hooked up over to the boom. I got to turn down my sound. Output. Boom. All right. We got about 2 minutes, and we go live on the radio station. So, Rainey just told me I don't look good. I'm just tired. I'm tired. She said I didn't look good on camera the last couple of days when she was talking to me. So do I look okay? I'm just tired. My face feels tired. It's very hot. I got a little overheated today. I hate to report that, but hey, Delaney. Sorry to hear that. Yeah, I wonder what happened with that. Yeah, Matt, there was just all kinds of hackers in here last night trying to cause trouble. They weren't really hacking into us. They were just in the chat room and trying to be distracting. That's all. So, dumb, stupid stuff, dumb people trying to use reasoning with me for what they were doing. And it just didn't work. So, sorry. Thank you, Niall. Love the Custer beard. Yeah, it's back. It's getting there. It's growing. So I'm gonna do I think I'll do the big things with the wax the stash again. Stuff like that. I like that look from time to time. I usually save it for winter because it makes me look like Santa Claus. So say my little kids. So there we go. They were obsessed with, the stairs in the background. I don't think they were really obsessed with that, Leslie. They were finding something to gang up on, a stupid thing to try to distract people. It's all right. Comes down to, I don't care. But I like to challenge them. And when they can't stand up to the challenge, that's obvious. All right. We've got just a few seconds and we go live. So I'm going dark. See you in a few seconds.
Are you looking for a really awesome and amazing graphic designer? How about an illustrator or a photographer? This is Rainey Roberts, and I wanted to tell you how you can get my designer, illustrator husband, Scotty Roberts, to work for you on your project. Do you have an awesome self-published book but no cover, or even worse, a cover that really sucks? Do you need a kick-ass logo for your company or some f***ing awesome graphic designs for your ads or website? Then get in touch with my husband for the best f***ing awesome kick-ass design and illustration. He knows his stuff, and he's been at this for more years than I've been alive. Go to ScottAllenRoberts.com. That's Scott with 2 T's, ALANROBERTS.com to take a look at his online portfolio of work, or call 651-468 8115. Now go out and kick some ass with some kick-ass graphic design.
Hire my dad so he can take me to Disneyland.
You're listening to the Intrepid radio program with Scotty Roberts. Intelligent talk.
Hey, happy Thursday evening, everyone. Welcome to the Intrepid radio program. It's me, your host, as usual, Scotty Roberts. And we're listening on the radio station over at Odyssey Radio. And that's ODYSY radio.com. Go on over, see all the goodness that's Odyssey Radio. At the same time, you can listen to this program, watch it simulcast, two different ways, facebook.com/Odyssey Radio, and also over on my YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/Scotty Roberts. And you can join the fellow Intrepheads over there already gathering like wild people over in the chat room on my YouTube channel. When you're there, you can subscribe to my channel if you haven't already and hit the thumbs up if you like the show. If you don't like the show, you can hit the thumbs down, but why? Other than to express your deep discontent with what goes on here on a daily basis. And you can also, if you'd like, you can join the channel. And believe it or not, there are perks to joining this channel. Sometimes we do them, sometimes we don't. But get in there, hit the join button down below over here somewhere, and you'll be able to see how you can join the channel. And so welcome again tonight. Let me take a quick drink. Oh, my goodness. Dry throat today. It's gotten very hot here. Not hot as some other places, but it's been up in the, it was over 100 degrees Fahrenheit the other day. And those of you living in Celsius land, if it was over 100, we'd be dead. But so you get the idea. It's been over 100 degrees here. It was only about 85 to 90 today. And I took the road trip back from the North Woods today, and we were riding in a guy that was giving me the ride back here was driving his old Mustang, and it had air conditioning, but he had the windows open, and we're going down the freeway at 75 miles per hour, and all the wind coming in, and it felt pretty good, but it got damn hot at one point. And by the time I got home, and we went out and did a couple of things when I got here this afternoon, and I got a little overheated, and I was just like, whew, man. And I don't usually fall prey to or victim to heat and overheating. So I was a little out of it late this evening before the show started, but I'm doing good now. Boom, here I am. And last night, I got to tell you, I loved the topic last night. It was kind of a last minute to jump into it. And I've talked about these things before, but I don't think I ever really got in deeply about the uprising, the Dakota uprising of 1862. And it happened right here in Minnesota. And there was Native Americans, or you can call them Indians if you want. There was the war where the Native Americans, the Dakota tribe, just got fed up. And they'd been pushed off their land. They'd been cheated out of their land. They sold 24 million acres of their land, which is about half the state of Minnesota today. And they just kept getting cheated. They kept getting cheated by the government agents, the Indian Bureau agents. They weren't getting the payments they were promised to buy food and blankets and things like that. They weren't allowed to hunt. And so after a while, they just got fed up. And they went on a little, a handful of them killed some white settlers. Said, there you go. Thanks for nothing. And turned, of course, into the big Dakota uprising, and which many of them ended up in the internment camp, we called it, with the United States government at Fort Snelling here in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And right near the big airport here, right, it's not in the downtown, but it's in the suburban area. It's the confluence of the two rivers, the Mississippi and the Minnesota, and where it's sat on a bluff there. And we've talked about that concentration camp before. And so we got to talk about that in a little more detail last night. And few disruptions from idiots, and that was about it. But did not deter us. Onward and forward we go. And so there it is. So I hope you enjoyed that last night. Tonight I want to jump back into the meditations, because these are going to go on for a long time. So we'll punctuate the rest of the meditations, which might take weeks to get through to the end of them. We'll throw in other shows now and then. Fridays are going to be our ghost days here on Intrepid Radio. And we'll jump into doing some more ghost stuff tomorrow. Might have Ruben Fasthorse with us again tomorrow to talk about some ghosty things. And I'm working on some interviews. I've had promises from people to do interviews, and then they have to back out. And so trying to get them back. Jason Hawes from the original Ghost Hunters. Amy Bruni, I'm working on her. And we'll see what we can do to get some dates lined up, to get some interesting people here to talk about that stuff. Yeah, no, you can go back and listen to it. It was silly. When you see me going off on that stuff, it's not so much that, yes, I was distracted by it, but I felt I needed to say something about it as well. And of course, there's not any reasoning to do with some of these people, because like the one guy said last night, I only do this because it's fun. But at the same time said he loved the show. Maybe he just loves this show because he thinks it's a good target, which is surprising, because we're not the biggest show out there, that's for certain. Hey, Matthew Sainsbury, welcome to the chat room. Susie Q, I see you over in the chat room. Leslie Holker, of course. And Field Guy is here. And Niall from Ireland. I said Matthew is here from Barbados. Morgan Snow. Matt Finn, Master Finn. And You Don't Know Me Mom is here. Good to see you. I haven't seen you for a long time. Nice to have you in the show tonight and over in the chat room. And Barbie D is here. I'm trying to hit everybody real quick. I don't usually like to do it during live airtime, but let's do it anyway. I don't care. It's my show. Field Guy is here. Barbie D. I think I've hit almost everybody that's got their face shining over in the chat room for now. And Elderberry is here. Good to see you, Elderberry. And others, if I missed you, it's not because I miss you. I missed you. It's because I didn't see you, if that made sense. Let's see. Meditations. What does this entail? Asks Niall. Well, let's just get into that. Well, this is something we try to say at the beginning of every show where we get back into the meditations, is these are the writings of Emperor of Rome, Marcus Aurelius. And Marcus Aurelius was a philosopher. He was schooled in philosophy, as many aristocratic kids were. And I think he preferred himself to be a philosopher, but he took on these responsibilities that were given him, and this is what he was molded to do. And he became the emperor. He was co-emperor for a while. All these things in the Meditations. This is a book that's been compiled of all of his writings to himself. Now, scholars like to say, Marcus Aurelius would probably bristle at the fact that this has become a book that other people are reading. I don't think so, because there are things that he says that aren't just to himself, but that he expands that out to anybody who might be reading what he's saying. But overall, these were a compilation of all his notes to himself, his writings to himself. And so that makes it a very interesting book, and it has lasted a long time, almost 2,000 years, because of its content. And it's very good stuff. We're up to book 4 of his meditations, and These are all divided. They weren't divided by him as into chapters and things. He numbered things, but these were later divided into these different books and different eras of his life, his reign, and things like this. And so this is where we are. We're up to book 4. He starts book 4 with number 1. Remember, these are like big paragraphs that he writes to himself. Some of them little tiny sentences. Number 1, he says, our inward power, when it obeys nature, reacts to events by accommodating itself to what it faces, to what is possible. It needs no specific material. It pursues its own aims as circumstances allow. It turns obstacles into fuel. As a fire overwhelms what would have quenched a lamp, that's thrown on top of the conflagration, the way it's the sentence structures. What's thrown up on top of the conflagration is absorbed, consumed by it, and makes it burn still higher. So these are things he's writing to himself. Number 2 was no random actions. None. Not based on underlying principles. This is what he's saying to himself. He's saying, self, don't make random acts. Make none that are not based on underlying principles. Now, there's something Niall brought out last week when we were talking about it. It was either last week or the week before. He mentioned that he thought that Marcus Aurelius was obviously influenced by other philosophers. Sure he was. And his reign was 160 years after the time of Christ. So is he influenced by Christian philosophy? Yeah, he is. To a certain extent, some of it is almost identical. Not all of it, but some of it. And so it's very interesting to read his stuff. I think some of this I've gone through before on this because I'm recognizing some of it. His number 3 says, people try to get away from it all. To the country, to the beach, to the mountains. We can still say that today, don't we? The weekends come for some people, and they're out of here. They go fishing, they go camping, they go to the beach, they go whatever. They take their vacations to these places. So he's saying people try to get away from it all. To the country, to the beach, to the mountains. You always wish that you could too, which is idiotic. You can get away from it anytime you like. And now he's talking to himself as the emperor. You wish that you could get away from it all too, don't you? He said, well, frankly, you can. You're the emperor. You can do whatever the hell you want, he's saying. By going, now here's where he expands it out to all of us. He says, you can get away from it all by going within. He's telling this to himself, but it applies to us as readers. You can get away from everything by going within. Nowhere you can go is more peaceful, more free of interruptions than your own soul, especially if you have other things to rely on. An instant's recollection, and there it is, complete tranquility. And by tranquility, I mean a kind of harmony. They sing in your mind. There was an old science fiction novel that I read once where the way to travel across the universe was in the mind. You could take yourself there. And there were, of course, all kinds of things that led up to how you could do this and how you could be there and so on. But you could think of a place and you could be there. This is almost that same thing. There's this tranquility, this harmony of being able to think of where you want to be and being there. He goes on and says, so keep getting away from it all. Like that. Go inward. Go to the peace within. Go to the place that is peaceful for your soul. Renew yourself, but keep it brief and basic. A quick visit should be enough to ward off all, and there's a blank. Is he saying all bullshit? All whatever? Did he deliberately leave the blank? And send you back ready to face what awaits you. And he says, and I know I've covered this before, so sorry if some of this seems familiar. We're recapping, obviously. He said, what's there to complain about? This is the same point. People's misbehavior? But take this into consideration. 1, that rational beings exist for one another. Rational beings exist for one another. This is something that was very misunderstood or deliberately not understood by some of the idiots that were in here attacking this site last night during the show. You could not be reasonable or rational with them because there was no reason or rationale there. But he says rational beings exist for one another. All of us here in this chat room, all of us listening to this, all of us devouring this stuff. I'm devouring it. You're devouring it as I'm putting it out there. We're all rational beings and we all exist for each other, he says. That doing what's right, number 2, doing what's right sometimes requires patience. Be patient about doing the right thing. Number 3, that no one does the wrong thing deliberately, is what he's saying. No one does the wrong thing deliberately. Now, I struggle with that one because I think that there are people who do the wrong thing deliberately. But let me ask, and I'm only using them as examples, like last night when we had all these guys coming in. Were those people, maybe it was just one person posing as several. But let me ask you, that person was insisted that they were rational and reasonable and could debate and talk, but at the same time, were trying to take down any argument I put up against doing what they were doing. Is that rational? Was he doing the wrong thing, or this person, whoever they were they doing the wrong thing intentionally, deliberately? What does Aurelius mean by this when he writes that? He says, no one does the wrong thing deliberately. I think I feel like I know a lot of people who deliberately do wrong. Or do people do wrong because they're not rational? They don't use reason. Is this what he's getting at? They're not doing it deliberately. They're doing it inadvertently because they're not using their minds. They're not using their reason. They're not using their rationale. So when somebody does something wrong, anything from a minor offense against you to murdering children in a school, does somebody who does something like that use their rational mind? No. It's not rational. It's not reasonable. They may have their rationale and their reasons for anything anybody does on that whole scale from almost nothing to devastatingly tragic. Whatever their actions are that they take, and they're wrong actions, do they do it because they're idiots? Do they do it because they ignore reason? Do they do it because they don't use their minds? And I think that is probably a very good thing to think about. And I never really thought about that till I saw Marcus Aurelius write that. No one does the wrong thing deliberately. You know what they do? They do the wrong thing because they don't think, they don't reason, they don't use rationale. And the number of people is fourth thing with this. The number of people who have feuded and envied and hated and fought and died and been buried. So he said, what's there to complain about? People's misbehavior. But take into consideration all these 4 things I just gave you. And keep your mouth shut, he says. He ends that all with. Keep your mouth shut. Or are you complaining about the things the world assigns you? But consider the 2 options, providence or atoms. And all the arguments for seeing the world as a city. Or it's your body. Keep in mind that when the mind detaches itself and realizes its own nature, becomes awake, I would say, and aware that it's awake. When it detaches itself and realizes its own nature, it no longer has anything to do with ordinary life. Do you have an ordinary life, guys? We all have stuff that happens. We all have our ordinary life. I had an ordinary life today. I had ordinary things going on. But his point is, keep in mind that when the mind detaches itself and realizes its own nature, it no longer has anything to do with the ordinary life. the rough and the smooth, either one. And remember all you've been taught and accepted about pain and pleasure. Again, he's talking philosophy. Niall says, I like philosophy, which is ironic, paradoxical. Yeah, it's a word. Or contradictory. I think philosophy falls into two camps: languishing musings or tormented tirades. I think I haven't thought about that enough to break that down any more than that, but those two are certainly correct. Niall, you're right about that. But I think there's probably more to philosophy than that. But I think you're onto something there. He goes on in the same point. He says, or is it your reputation that's bothering you? But look at how soon we're all forgotten. The abyss of endless time that swallows us all and everything. The emptiness of all those applauding hands, the people who praise us, how capricious they are, how arbitrary. And the tiny region in which it all takes place, the whole earth, a point in space. And most of it uninhabited. How many people there will be to admire you and who they are? I read that right. How many people there will be to admire you and who they are? So keep this refuge in mind, the back roads of yourself. Above all, that's the refuge, the back roads of yourself. Above all, no strain and no stress. Be straightforward. Look at things like a man, he's saying. Or to women, you would say, like a woman. Like a human being, perhaps. Be straightforward. Look at things like a man, like a human being, like a citizen, like a mortal. And among the things you turn to, these two. One, that things have no hold on the soul. They stand there unmoving, outside of it. Disturbance comes only from within, from your own perceptions. And two, that everything you see will soon alter and cease to exist. Think of how many changes you've already seen. I was doing that today. The guy that was driving me back home, because Andy always gets a driver to come pick me up and then take me home. And we were going through some neighborhoods in some small towns where he had to make a stop on the way. He says, man, there's more trees here than there ever were when I was younger. So, hey, Professor Bauer, welcome to the chat room. And he says, the world is nothing but change. Our life is only perception. That's what he says. Perhaps this is the dreamer's dream, that those who are awake need to awake from that dream and be aware of it. His number 4, in book number 4, if thought is something we share, then so is reason. What makes us reasoning beings? Think about this. Professor Bauer, good timing for you to be here and hear that. I'd love to hear your musings on that. If thought is something we share, then so is reason. What makes us reasoning beings? And if so, the reason that tells us what to do and what not to do is also shared. And if so, we share a common law and thus are fellow citizens and fellow citizens of something. And in that case, our state must be the world. And what other entity could all of humanity belong to? And from this state that we share, come thought and reason and law. Where else could they come from? The earth that composes me derives from earth. The water from some other element. The air from its own source. The heat and fire from theirs. Since nothing comes from nothing or returns to it, so thought must derive from somewhere else as well. It's interesting, huh? So, there it is. So, there you go. There's the Tom Gully show. Same person from last night, just so you guys know. So, number 5 he goes into in this section. Death. Something like birth. A natural mystery, elements that split and recombine. Not an embarrassing thing, Marcus Aurelius says. Not an offense to reason or our nature. Death, it's just there. It exists. Everyone has it. Number 6, that sort of person is bound to do that. You might as well resent a fig tree for secreting juice. Anyway, before very long, you'll both be dead and soon forgotten. This is Marcus Aurelius. That was his parenthetical there. You might as well resent a fig tree for secreting its juice, because you're both going to be dead anyway someday. So number 7, choose not to be harmed, and you won't feel harmed. Don't feel harmed, and you haven't been. Isn't that what I've said? All this stuff in the political arena nowadays, and everybody's got to be offended by something. And I said, you know what the answer is to that? Don't be offended. And they go, what? That offends me. Don't be offended. If you do not appropriate someone's attempt to offend you, you can't be offended. So offense is an acquired thing. That's why I've said to people, you can piss me off and I'll debate you and I'll argue with you or I'll want to put you in your place. But offended? You can't hurt my feelings or offend me unless I let you. That's a power I give to you. You in general. Anybody who's out there trying to point the finger at me or trying to cause me to put up a defense or something like that. I think this is very timely. It's coming up right now after all the idiocy of last night on this show. Excuse me. But I won't be offended by anything. You can't offend me. You know why? Because what was the meme I saw? It was Doc Holliday, played by Val Kilmer, and the meme in big white words said, "Sir, if I am to feel insulted by you, I must first regard you at all." Something like that. So there it is. So I think Aurelius is spot on with this. His 7th point here: choose not to be harmed. Oh, that's the one I just read. Choose not to be harmed, and you won't feel harmed. I don't care what you're doing. I don't care what you think about me. So what? It's a big so what. Move on. I'm moving on. Don't feel harmed, and you haven't been. And that's my thing about even last night. The stupidity of last night. I don't feel harmed by that. I saw it as a challenge. But tonight, all day, any day, every day for all of us, if you do not appropriate the offense, you can't be offended. And I think our nation should take that on. Our world should take that on nowadays, especially since everybody's always offended about everything. There's a lawsuit around every corner. And a political movement around every corner. His 8th point in this section: it can ruin your life only if it ruins your character. Otherwise, it cannot harm you, inside or out. There was, I think, more expansion on that last point of his. Number 9, it was for the best. So nature had no choice but to do it. Now, I don't know what he's referring to there in his own life, but he wrote that to himself. Whatever it was, blank was for the best. So nature had no choice but to do it. So there it is. Number 10, that every event is in the right one. I'm sorry, I put a the in there. Yeah, an extra word in there. That every event is the right one. Look closely, and you'll see. Not just the right one overall, but right. As if someone had weighed it out with scales. Keep looking closely like that, and embody it in your actions. Goodness, what defines a good person? Keep to it in everything you do. So says Marcus Aurelius to himself. 11, not what your enemy sees and hopes that you will, but what's really there. So it's not about what your enemy sees or the people that are against you see, but it's all about what's really there. So if they're not stating truth about you, it's not real. Number 12, he says, 2 kinds of readiness are constantly needed. 1, to do only that what the logos of authority and law dictates, with the good of human beings in mind. Do you know what the logos is? It's spoken about in the Bible. In the beginning, in the book of John, it starts and it says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, and the same was in the beginning with God. And the word it's talking about, the word is the word in the Koine Greek was logos or logos. And what does logos mean? You know what that means? Logos, no, it's describing something. It's not giving me the definition. Let's see. Here you go. Logos looking for the definition instead of all the different pronunciations and different things. Logos, ancient Greek. It's a term in Western philosophy, psychology, rhetoric, religion, derived from a Greek word variously meaning ground, plea, opinion, expectation, word, speech, account, reason, proportion, and discourse. Logos is frequently translated as some variation of logic or reasoning, but it originally referred to the actual content of a speech and how it was organized. Today, many people may discuss the logos qualities of a text to refer to how strong the logic or reasoning of that text is. But logos more closely refers to the structure and content of the text itself. In the beginning was the Logos, and the Logos was with God, and so on, as we find in the book of John, in the Bible, in a theological setting, how that was used. Logos became a technical term in Western philosophy, beginning with Heraclitus, who used the term for a principle of order and knowledge. Ancient Greek philosophers used the term in different ways. The sophists used the term to mean discourse. Aristotle applied the term to refer to reasoned discourse or the argument, and in the field of rhetoric, and considered it one of 3 modes of persuasion. Alongside ethos, pathos, there was logos. Pyrrhonist philosophers used the term to refer to dogmatic accounts of non-evident matters. The Stoics spoke of the logos, spermatikos, the generative principle of the universe. So the word sperm is in the generative principle of the universe, which foreshadows related concepts in Neoplatonism. And so there's all these different things. It goes even into here an explanation of the Gospel of John. The Gospel of John in the Bible, in the New Testament, identifies the Christian logos, through which all things are made, as divine, theos, and further identifies Jesus Christ as the incarnate Logos. So early translators of the Greek New Testament, such as Jerome in the 4th century AD, were frustrated by the inadequacy of any single Latin word to convey the meaning of the word Logos, as used to describe Jesus Christ in the book of John. The Vulgate Bible, the usage of it in principio erat verbum, was thus constrained to use the perhaps inadequate noun verb for word. Word is probably inadequate in the biblical translation. Later Romance language translations had the advantage of nouns such as le verbe in French. Reformation translators took on another approach. Martin Luther rejected Zeitwort, a verb, in favor of Wort, word. For instance, although later commentators repeatedly turned to a more dynamic use involving the living word as used by Jerome and Augustine, the term is also used in Sufism and in the analytical psychology of Carl Jung, who we've talked about here before. So despite the conventional translation of word, that word, the word word, logos is not used for a word in the grammatical sense. For that, the term lexis was used, L-E-X-I-S. However, both logos and lexis derive from the same verb, lego, meaning count, tell, say, speak, blah, 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 ad infinitum, etc., etc., etc. So you get the idea there when he's talking about, when he is talking about the word or the logos, this is what he means. Niall says, it strikes me that Aurelius has a mixture of politics and barely veiled religious morality in his meditations. For me, that's not philosophy. For him, it was. That's what they did 2,000 years ago. That was the school of philosophy led him to think that way. Now, we've developed our philosophical schools over the millennia, I'm sure, so that it can come to mean different things nowadays for different people. But that's the heart of philosophy. I disagree with his philosophy because my philosophy says this. And that's what we see as we move along. Hey, Steve Clark, over there in the chat room, welcome. So this goes on, all right? So I started by saying in his 12th point in book 4, he says, 2 kinds of readiness are constantly needed. He's saying this to himself, but take it on yourself. 2 kinds of readiness are needed. To do only what the logos of authority and law dictates, the meaning, the speech, the word, the intent, and so on, with the good of human beings in mind. Now, by the way, now you know what logos means. You can use that in daily speech. Second one was to reconsider your position when someone can set you straight or convert you to his. So reconsider your position if you have to. All he's saying is be open to reconsidering your position. But like with me, my wife will say, you just like to argue. No, I have a point of view about something. I am solidly set on my point of view unless you can convince me otherwise. Now, I have to be, as a person, I have to be open to being reconvinced. It's like I say, when I wrote about this guy, Senenmut, back behind me, I said, I am 98% sure that this was Moses, historically speaking. But that 2% that I leave open, and that's an arbitrary figure. I just meant a small, minute percentage point. When that's open, I am willing to see information and facts that might convince me I'm wrong, or doesn't have to convince me I'm wrong, could convince me that something else is right. And therefore I could modify my views. So, and you're right, Niall, I just see it over here in the chat room off to my right. Philosophy has no structure to it. It's knowing everything about nothing whilst knowing everything about nothing. I like that and aspire to it. There it is. I know nothing about nothing. I like the way you stated that. It's knowing everything about nothing whilst knowing everything about nothing. There it is. Perfect description of philosophy. So anyway, he goes on here. He says to reconsider your position when someone can set you straight or convert you to his, but your conversation should always rest on conviction that it is right. You don't change your mind because somebody makes you change your mind. Change your mind because you are convinced that your mind needed changing, that there is a different point of view. It's like, you will never convince me about certain aspects of our Constitution, of the way we are governed here in this country, as an example. You can bring up all your weird reasoning and all of that within the structure of our country here. You're not going to convince me that the Constitution is outdated. It's not. And I don't even need to get into that. But your conversation should always rest on the conviction that it's right or benefits others, nothing else. Not because it's more appealing or more popular. You don't go with just the popular thing. I see so many people out there. I look at my friend Carr, I talked about a couple of weeks ago, who had been accused of rape 4 years ago in a highly volatile theater setting where everybody is dramatic and emotional. And everybody was going along with the Me Too movement. Or again, as Rainey calls it, the Pound Me Too. So, the pound sign, hashtag, Pound Me Too. So we need to put that on a shirt for her. Anyway, so people going along with that. And his life was ruined. His reputation was ruined. He still had it for himself and the few people around him that stood and supported him. But the political movement around him was what moved everybody to do something because it was more appealing and it was more popular. People had to go along with what they were saying over there in their accusations because everybody else was joining that bandwagon. They weren't convinced of it. I had so many people that I talked to that tried to convince me that he was guilty on the flimsiest of grounds. And I happen to know more about the situation than they did. Oh, really? I'd say, really? Okay. Were you aware of this? So your whole argument crumbles in 2 seconds. So on and so forth. Number 13 here. Marcus Aurelius says, you have a mind? He's asking a question. Do you have a mind? Yes, is the answer. And he says again, so why not use it? Isn't that all you want? For your mind to do its job? That's pretty good. You have a mind? Yeah. Use it. He's saying. Number 14. You have functioned as part of something. You will vanish into what produced you. Or be restored, rather, to the logos from which all things spring by being changed. And it's written almost as poetry, the way he's broken up his lines. 15 says, many lumps of incense on the same altar. One crumbles now, one later, but it makes no difference. All gives off the same fragrance. 16, now they see you as a beast, a monkey, built in a week. They'll think you're a god. Well, but in a week, they'll think you're a god if you rediscover your beliefs and honor the logos. Now they see you as a beast and a monkey, but in a week, they'll see you as a god if you rediscover your beliefs and honor the logos. 17, not to live as if you had endless years ahead of you. He's saying to himself, don't live as if you have endless years ahead of you. Death overshadows you. While you're alive and able, be good. Boom, period. That's all he says about that. Be good. I had a youth pastor when I was a kid, and I thought this was so poetic at the time, but he would say, and it's so simple, he says, be good until the stars fall. I remember, and it just pops into my head. So as you know me, I've got to say it. There's that scene that my son Sam likes so much from the animated film Treasure Planet, the space opera version in animation of Treasure Island. And Jim Hawkins has just done something that led to the death of somebody. He thought that his actions killed somebody, and they didn't, and that's part of the plot. But he's sitting by himself, and Long John Silver comes to me and says, "Weren't your fault, you know." And Hawkins says, "Don't you get it?" He says, "I screwed up, and I'm a screw up, and this and that," and this is the dialogue in the movie. And he turns away. He says, "I'm good to no one," basically. And he turns away, and Silver looks at him from behind, and he reaches and grabs his shoulder. He says, "Now you look here, Jim Hawkins." He says, "You have the makings of greatness in you, boy." And he says, "But you've got to take the helm on your own." He says, you've got to live through the squalls." And he says, "And when you emerge from that," he says, "you're going to be," he says, "you're going to shine in the light of the stars." He says, "And all I wish is that I hope I'm there to see it someday." He says, and this is the big turning point for that character in the movie. And my son Sam is always moved by this and always reminds me of it. When he was going through his most difficult times 6-7 years ago, I would remind him of that movie. And I would say to him, you have the makings of greatness in you, but you've got to chart your own course and take the helm, no matter the squalls. And that stuck with him. So, in a sense, this is kind of what Marcus Aurelius is saying. Don't live as if you had endless years ahead of you. Death overshadows you. While you're alive and able, be good, he says. You got the goodness in you. You got the makings of greatness in you. And we've only got 3 minutes left, believe it or not, of this show. Yes, he is, Leslie. He's a great young man. And so I think we have time to fit this last little one in here before we have to end this. The tranquility, number 18, the tranquility, Marcus Aurelius says, that comes when you stop caring what others say or think or do, only what you do. Is this fair? He puts in parentheses. Is this the right thing to do? He says, don't be distracted by their darkness. To run straight for the finish line, unswerving, is what you need to do. Don't sweat the criticism. Don't let that bother you. You need to chart your own course. Take the helm, no matter the squalls, is what he's saying. He says, it's the tranquility that comes when you stop caring what other people think and say. What a strong message. That's why this is so good 2,000 years later. And there's more to this, but we'll hit the more next time. Not tomorrow night, probably next Monday, before we hit the meditations again. So, folks, I just want to tell you, live long and prosper. Stick around for the Captain's Cabin.
Are you looking for a really awesome and amazing graphic designer? How about an illustrator or a photographer? This is Rainey Roberts, and I wanted to tell you how you can get my designer, illustrator husband, Scotty Roberts, to work for you on your cover, or even worse, a cover that really sucks. Do you need a kick-ass logo for your company or some f***ing awesome graphic designs for your ads or website? Then get in touch with my husband for the best f***ing awesome kick-ass design and illustration. He knows his stuff, and he's been at this for more years than I've been alive. Go to ScottAllenRoberts.com. That's Scott with 2 T's, ALANROBERTS.com to take a look at his online portfolio of work, or call 651-468-8115. Now go out and kick some ass with some kick-ass graphic design.
Hire my dad so he can take me to Disneyland.
You're listening to the Intrepid radio program with Scotty Roberts. Intelligent Talk.
And welcome back to the Captain's Cabin, all you scallywags and stinking sea dogs. Shiver me timbers. Welcome. Glad you're here tonight. And we may or may not take a long time here tonight. It all depends. I'm a little out of my sorts tonight. A little feeling not as well as I could. You know, at my age, with all the ailments and junk that I have, you sometimes worry that are any of you like this? You sometimes worry, am I going to die soon? You know, what's going on with me? Why don't I have the energy I had? Why do I feel crappy today? Things like that. And you want to go get it checked out. And so, hey, Siani, good to see you. Hey, everybody else that I didn't say hi to before that came in during the show, and I didn't get a chance to say hello. Niall says, in a way, philosophy is a discipline learned on the fly. Ain't that the truth? It's a feeling that there are opposites in reality. That's all. Well, there it is. I don't know if I've ever defined it that way, and I don't so much define philosophy or how I come about getting to philosophical answers about things. You just do it, and you get there. Leslie says, we drove to Wisconsin and back last Saturday. It was spent for several days. It's all that, we probably went right near your house again today. On my way up to Andy's, up to Pequot Lakes, Leslie. And then on our way back today, we went through, not through, but we were in St. Cloud and Monticello, I guess it is in Minnesota, Monticello in Virginia. So we were very close to you, but couldn't stop. I don't stink as I took a bath, said Steve Clark. Outstanding, Steve. Taking a bath or a shower on a hot, sweaty day, it's a good thing. And like Steve, sitting around naked, smoking cigars, listening to the show. One of these times you need to stop by. I do, Leslie. I need to do that when I'm driving myself rather than being driven. So, like I said earlier, Andy always sends a driver to get me and then a driver to take me home. So, it's kind of neat. No more stairs, says Ryan Gale. What'd I miss? Stairs. Hey, June Shasta. I often burn dinner, she says. Outstanding. Just convert it into, you say, I was worshiping gods, and this is your burnt offering. So it's a sacrifice. So, you're back from a vacation, Siani. Nice, Branson. Very nice. I have somebody I used to work with, Desiree, is her name, Des, in a multimedia company back in, God, it was 30 years ago. So hard to believe. But they just went to Italy, and they're still in Italy, I think. So I would like to take Rainey on a spectacular vacation one of these days. And that would certainly involve having grandma or somebody here to watch the kids while we go take off. I don't know that we could go for 2 weeks. I think everybody would have a problem with that. The kids, I mean. Rainey, I don't think Rainey could take being away from the kids for 2 weeks. I probably could. I'm a guy. I take my kids, I compartmentalize them, they're over here. I'm a vacation is here. Exploration, we're doing stuff. We'll send pictures to the kids. We'll talk to them online, whatever. So, by the way, I just do this and I just saw myself in the camera. I'm starting to get like televangelist hair. Look at this. It's getting really long. So I have televangelist hair. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm at that point right now where I either go get it cut and I shave it all down like I used to, like I usually do on the sides and so on, or I let it grow. But I don't have enough up here. So I don't know. Give me an opinion out there. A stupid opinion, a dumb thing. But do I grow it long? Do I have enough up there to do anything to make it look good? Or am I just going to, look dumb? Like this. Shave the top and grow this out. Okay, there you go. Thank you, Matthew Sainsbury. It is a playful hairstyle. So I could be Gandalf, says Sienna. Yeah, I could. I should. I'd have to grow the big beard. I'd grow a Uncle Dave Potter beard. Yeah, where's he tonight, by the way? He didn't ask permission to not be here tonight. Where is he? He must have some function going on. So, Barbie D, when you had it up like that, it looked like someone scared you. Yeah. Ah! So, yeah, there it is. It's just long, and it's in that phase of it's not right. I have to put junk in it to keep it from floofing out all over the place. So I know, not deep conversation, but there it is. And I keep leaning in. You know what? I'm just going to stop leaning in and squinting and put on my cheaters so I can see the computer from back here. Sean Stroik, good to see you. Glad you're here. Matt Finn, we never talk anymore. I see you in the chat room, and we don't talk. We'll have to talk one of these days. So, Dave Potter is here. Is he? I haven't seen him. Oh, there he is. Uncle Dave is here. Good to see you, Uncle Dave. Sean Stroik says, hey, Scotty Robertson and Intrepid. Hey, Lieutenant Dan. I take it you haven't had time to work on my drawing. Siani, I have not. Let's you and I talk. Let's figure out. Let's get together in front of a calendar tomorrow and get that figured out. Here's Professor Bauer. I'm going to add him to the stream.
Uh-oh.
There you are. Uh-oh. What'd you do?
Hold on a second.
All right, I'm holding. Let's see.
I knocked over something and needed to put it back together. So.
Oh, you know what I did today? I had this filled with some cool libating. Is libating a word? Libating refreshment or refreshing libation, however you want to look at it. And it was full to the brim. And I set it here on my desk. And I had this computer under one arm. I was bringing it back in. And so I set this on my desk. I put it over here where I normally put it. And I set the computer down. And I had to turn it. I have to swing this thing around. and I turned it, and I hadn't set this quite far enough away. I hit it with the corner of the computer
didn't leave
screen, which is, this big. And here, wait, let me do that again, which is this big. And so I tipped it, dumped it all over my desk. I've got the secondary computer over here, the drawing computer, which is, right there. Oh, and this lovely picture of Rainey leaning up against it. I'll just share that with everybody. My lovely wife picture there. But so I dumped it all over the desk, and I had to, okay, of course, quick wipe it up because there's electronics sitting in it. My disk drives are sitting in it, and books are sitting in it, and I got a big computer under my arm, and I can't just drop it. But lucky me, there was a basket of clothes right there on the other side of my desk. Set it down in there, and I had to wipe everything up. Oh my God, it was a mess. Everything was wet. And so if that's anything like what you just experienced,
I've got something here that it was stacked the way it needed to be stacked so it would sit there, and I moved my mouse and the pad hit it, and I went, okay. I don't want to, So one of the things that you mentioned during the show, I wanted to make a comment on was your sense of, getting older. Things happen, things wear out, and things, especially depending on what everybody goes through, and depending on the road traveled, right? So one of the things that I've been noticing and kind of getting on my own butt about is how long it takes me to figure out how to do something better. And and it's particularly as it relates to chores or to organizing things. And I'll give you one example because it's fresh. So I have 3 dumpsters, okay, the green ones that you roll out to the curb, right? And they come every Tuesday, and every other Tuesday they come for recyclables. So these 3 cans, they're on the side of the house, of the garage, and I go out a gate and I go buy them. And I kept going down for several months and putting the trash in the first one. So it would be the first one that I would roll out when it was time to take the trash out. Right. And I really didn't use the third one. And the recycling, I throw bottles and whatever in there, mostly plastic and cardboard. But one day I walked out and I said, why am I going all the way down to the end to get that short little walk out to the curb from being the first can? Why am I doing that when I go out and take the trash, and I do that multiple times a week? So I fill up the first one. So I said, well, why don't I just use the first one in line and then just take it out and roll it down? So when I realized that, when I thought about it, I thought, now, why didn't I think about that before? Or is you see what I'm saying?
Yes.
So I've been having a lot of little episodes like that going, okay. And it has to do with, I'm trying to put as much fung in my shui as possible around the crib, the studio.
Fungus in your what?
And so I'm a little bit more sensitive to that because I'm paying attention to it. But when I see things and I go, well, why didn't I just do that before? Why was I doing that particular activity with an extra step or two, or one that was unnecessary, when I could have shortened it and done this?
Sure. Yeah.
So I find more
what
of
we
that.
Do. I like to get you reminded me of something when you said feng shui, because I was talking about fungus with somebody today, and I thought, why did I have fungus on the brain? Oh, because we were talking about coffee, and I said, we were talking about coffee and caffeine and how it affects us, and I said, my wife, the health nut, gluten-free and all of this and all of that and vitamin this and that and blah, blah, blah. And she got this new coffee. I got this new coffee you got to try. It's made out of mushrooms.
Oh, yeah.
Mushrooms? I said, fungus? Not coffee beans. like, and then I put on my best Seinfeld voice. Mushrooms aren't coffee. You can have ground mushrooms and drink it, but that's not coffee. Coffee is coffee. So, there's something philosophical in that. It just all came to mind because of the conversation I had this afternoon. So,
yeah, and
folks,
to that point, I've been using the Rice RYZE mushroom coffee. I'm on my second month of it. I'm enjoying it.
Oh, you've got the mushroom coffee?
Oh yeah, I've actually got.
How is it? Well, if you're on month 2, you must like it.
Yeah, yes, I do like it. I've been doing it with different variations. So I'll make a pot of coffee, and I'll do pour the coffee in, and then do a nice couple of scoops of the mushroom coffee in there. Sometimes I'll do the mushroom coffee, and I'll do honey in all of them. So sometimes I'll just do the mushroom coffee.
Honey. I use honey to sweeten my tea and stuff like that. I've used it in coffee before.
But I also have mushroom hot chocolate.
Mushroom
hot chocolate.
Mushrooms, not chocolate.
All right.
So yeah, that's for me. It's like Rainey handed me a cup of that. First time she made it, she goes, "This isn't bad. Here, try good. This." You know how people always are. They either go, "Oh, this is good. Try this," or they go, "Well, that sucks. Taste that." You know, I don't want to taste that. You just said it sucked. But so I tasted this mushroom coffee, and it tasted to me like hot water with a mushroom crayon dipped into it. And it was like, it's got nothing for me. It did nothing. I don't know if does it have caffeine or does it have other qualities?
Well, no, it has, it's several lion's mane, cat's tail. There's like reishi, chaga,
cat tail.
I use, or not cat tail,
like the long skinny things.
No, I got the name wrong. Oh, no, not one of those. It's a mushroom cat. I can't think of the second part.
Shrooms.
Chaga mushroom is something that I do all the time, along with bee pollen, and they are. I tell you what, the fungus among us, they got us covered. Mushrooms are amazing. The things can be done aside from all the, the psychedelic nature of it, mescaline and peyote and psilocybin and in the mushrooms. I mean, I think that we're going to see a revolution in the treatment of a shitload of ailments that's going to be mushroom driven, and people are going to be, then they're going to really sit back. They're doing it with weed now. They're going, why? Explain to me why again that you make weed illegal and put all these people in jail. And what was that reasoning again?
Yeah,
because apparently whatever the reason was didn't have anything to do with the facts that are out today. And that's what I think we're going to see with mushrooms. Same type of thing. It's going to blow people's mind. PTSD, mental schizophrenia, the number of mental benefits from mushroom in the
well, they'll legalize it then,
which is
they'll legalize it. The powers that be don't want that stuff cured.
Well, there's no money in the cure.
No.
Right, so they're not going to.
The money's in the treatment.
That's right.
So,
and that's why they're
high in vitamin C.
That's why they're also starting to talk about the next pandemic.
Oh, what's the next one going to be now?
Well, Biden just said it today. He had his little kids card, his little flash card.
Yeah,
they got a picture of it. It was funny as hell. If you look at it, it's president. It says President something, and then it has a list of things, and it says "you" in all caps will come out. You will ask. Everything's those are in caps. Everything else is in lower caps. You will then sit. You will then announce. Then you will ask a question. Then you will exit. That's it. He showed it up. He held it up, and everybody got a picture. I was like,
"Here's my card."
It's like grandpa card. It's like we as long we'll give Grandpa what he needs to do and what the instructions are and what's going to happen, and as long
I've
as
been
he follows
president
that,
today. Can I go home now?
You know, what do you suppose were his handlers cringing at that? Do you suppose, or were they like, oh well, here we go?
You know what? It seems to me like we've talked a little bit about this. The people that are in place in the positions that can that are needed in order to fulfill the duties and the execution of our government, and doing it in the, you know, from the lead chair, right, lead jeep. It seems like the people that he's clearly being managed because he needs to be.
It needs to be.
As aside from the fact that he was never the one that everybody was going to rely on to get things done. He was simply the, you know, the puppet, the, you know, the figurehead, and they just prop him up, give him obviously cue cards. Here's what you need to say, Gramps. Get it right. Don't go off script. Don't let anybody squirrel you. And so, but it's the people underneath, and it seems to me there, when I look at I try to see from a 30,000 foot view of what's going on down there. There's a whole bunch of shit and stuff afoot. There's little pockets of angst and this and that going on. There's a shitload of disagreement on not only, you know, the policies and the directions and things, but the sentences, the words, the people. They've introduced this complete fluidity of information and facts, and they've said, okay, the only way, and they don't even realize, even though they have regular skirmishes, that they're at odds with them in their own group within themselves. They are literally, they throw up, you know, it's how do you say, for example, you know, you got to do this gun control thing, and you just sent, and you know, the border isn't a problem, or it isn't as bad as everybody's making it out to be, and turn around and send $40 billion to a war in another country because you're trying to arm them and protect them. So it's like, okay,
that was the big George Takei made that big faux pas a week or two ago. He said, why don't we take all of our I know what we can do with all of our automatic weapons. Let's take them away from our citizens and send them over to Ukraine so they can use them against Russia. And somebody answered him. It was a tweet, and somebody answered him and said, oh, you mean that the Ukrainians could use weapons to fight against an oppressor? You know, isn't that the guys who framed the Constitution? Wow, they were onto something, weren't they?
Well, and that's the thing, is that the people, it seems as though this group of people, and there's little cabals and groups, and to me, it's more like a kind of a mafia region.
Stop it now, Michelle Canham Free. Sorry. Just a little aside. No, don't worry about it.
But it's like a, you know, Chicago, New York kind of mafia in, you know, the 30s and 40s. There's individual groups and dons or whatever that have their little fiefdoms, and they get along to get along. But when they don't get along, it just gets ugly, and they just start taking people out. I think that there's some of that about, it's happening now in little pockets, but literally the people that are in there seem to have a psychological and a personal characteristic of being, you know, in this exaggerated progressive, and actually turned around from its original meaning, the word progressive, and they've taken it and said, well, progressivism is fluidity in one's identity, right? Fluidity in the system in which we function, and allows us to be there, and gives us our rights to exist because our identity is fluid. Ergo, the system must be fluid, so that anything that resists the fluidity of the identity crap, it must be eliminated. It must be mitigated at a minimum, because it's inhibiting and impeding progress. And you go, I don't think you understand what you are saying. I don't think you have. In fact, I know you don't.
That word means,
because if you did, you wouldn't say that and expect people to go with it. And that's I think that, to me, everything that we see coming out of the executive branch and the things that are said, done, just the personalities. I mean, seriously,
Right.
I haven't seen anybody, and it's not because I'm anti-liberal, neoliberal, progressive. They need to be fixed as a group, as an ideology. It needs to be rehauled because it's totally screwed up. And it's causing everything that they are complaining about, which is another one of those ironies of reason, as you were talking about in the show. Do you have enough reason to understand? Is there any self-examination? Is there a moment of self-reflection? Is there a moment of sense of self and being honest and being authentic? So if you can be authentic and you're still acting that way, you probably want to get some support or some help for that, because that's not how society in a generically moral society one would function. You don't have, because you have emotional immaturity and you can't control it, you don't have a right to ask others to adhere and acquiesce to your bullshit. That is not a right anywhere. Okay. It is something that you're trying to impose because of your lack of maturity and control. So until you get that right, or at least until you can operate from that premise, any kind of discourse or discussion about whatever it is that you are so obviously animated and way over set or being upset with, I mean, that you can't function when the emotions are the forefront of the discourse.
That's it. That's the conversation I had with the friend of mine over guns and the Constitution last week. You can't, I told her sometimes you've got to extricate yourself from the emotional side to look at the reason, to look at the logic of it. You've got to combine them both and find the balance. And that's the one who ended up saying, well, I think the Constitution should be done away with. And we should. Then you're talking about founding a new nation.
I forgot who it was that. Oh, it was. I can't believe the guy still has a show. Keith Olbermann.
Oh my God!
Yeah, tweeted out
that today.
Just dismantle the Supreme Court. It's like,
I just saw that. I posted that today after the Supreme Court's decision this morning about they knocked down they knocked the case down that said you couldn't wear firearms in public and outside of your home, and in New York, the New York law, and the Supreme Court said
the New York law. The New York law stated what they did is they added an extra layer to it, in that you had to show and prove that your need to conceal and carry out in public was the result of your safety, some special circumstances. And Siani, I agree with that. And what the Supreme Court said, and Clarence he whipped out the the cunning linguistics, and he just got right to the point. And so what that means is that the Second Amendment has been upheld in its base form and in its base reason, and it's been turned back to the states. Now, that's what we're thinking is going to happen with the Roe v. Wade, which is I wouldn't be surprised if they deferred to the next session, just because realizing the temperature of the moment,
right?
But I think that I would not. I think that would be a wise consideration. I don't know if it'd be right or wrong. Only time would tell. But the other thing is just get it out of the way and get everybody over the summer to wear each other out, because the only people that are out making all of the noise and the hassle are the people that are anti everything else that the rest of us enjoy and have signed up for. Can things be changed, modified, improved? Absolutely. That's what progress is.
Yeah.
But you don't do it by taking a product that is so insanely obviously flawed and suboptimal at best. You can't take all of these trans this, move that, tax that,
right.
Threat this. I mean, that the whole narrative is based on fear. It's all based on anger. It's a bunch of weak women and a bunch of pissed off men over there, or the other way around, a bunch of weak men and pissed off women. Because the men, I mean, I'm looking at this, I'm going, these guys are the ones that are going to have to go out and learn how to start a push mower. What?
Yeah.
It ain't going to happen.
I was just looking at, and I have this up in front of me because I posted the link. Sometimes you get tired of posting articles about it. So I posted the link to the Supreme Court decision today. And I'm looking at Justice Thomas. You mentioned him. And deep into his opinion that he gives, he says, we held that the Second and the 14th Amendments protect an individual right to keep and bear arms for self-defense. In doing so, we held unconstitutional 2 laws that prohibited the possession and use of handguns in the home. In the years since, the Court of Appeals have coalesced around a 2-step framework for analyzing Second Amendment challenges that combines history with the means and scrutiny. Today, we decline to adopt that 2-part approach. In keeping with Heller, the case before, we hold that when the Second Amendment's plain text covers an individual's conduct, the Constitution presumptively protects that conduct. To justify its regulation, the government may not simply posit that the regulation promotes an important interest. Rather, the government must demonstrate that the regulation is consistent with this nation's historical tradition of firearm regulation. Only if a firearm regulation is consistent with this nation's historical tradition may a court conclude that the individual's conduct falls outside the Second Amendment's unqualified command. And he goes on and on and on, stating cases and so on and so forth. And of course, now you got the left wanting to or threatening to add 4 justices. Why 4?
Jesus.
Why not 1? Why not 2? Why not 3? Well, 4, because it would totally outweigh the balance. So
the thing is that in my view at this time, what we're witnessing is, a lot of different things, a transition of just transformative disruption across the entire planet on all levels, financial, technical, political, social. All of it is going through a major shift. And that is, going back to your point about earlier in the show about being, either being tired or what. There's a shitload of energies coming in that's affecting everybody in their own unique way, depending on their own signature. So that alone is causing a whole bunch of, man, I got to tell you what, I love naps. I wish I would have known this. If they, they say, if you go back and tell yourself one thing, what would it be? I say, I go back to about 3 and say, take your fucking nap. You're going to love it.
You know what?
Take it when you can.
I was taking naps when I was in college. It's the best thing I ever did. Hey, Sarah Yusuf, thanks for being here, but we're not going to be here very much longer tonight.
No, we got to I got to get.
You got this for me?
At the food shelf.
Thank you. You went to the food shelf and got this for me? That was very nice of you. I appreciate that.
This is all the condiments.
Oh, very nice. Look at this, folks. They got this for me at the food place today.
Show them the condiments.
Daily Greens. It's got 1 apple. What's in this little bottle? Why, I'll tell you what's in this little bottle. 1 apple, 1 1/3 cups of cucumbers, 1/4 cup of celery, 1/3 of a kiwi, 1/4 cup kale, spinach, and romaine, and a squeeze of lemon are all in this essential nutrients. Bolt House Farms Daily Greens.
Try it.
Right there. Try it right now?
Uh-huh.
Why do you want me to try it right now? You're off camera, by the way. There you are. Here's Ellery. All right, we'll try it.
Hey, Ellery.
I knew it was going to have kale and spinach, says Leslie Holker.
Well, all you need is a shot of tequila in that thing, and you'll be good to go.
Shot of tequila, and it's good. Or gin or vodka.
Hey, one of the things I've gone through various different types of diets and periods and things over my life. And at one point I did vegan and all the vegetarian and all the other V's that they got stacked in there. And I got to tell
Uncle Dave says hi.
I got to tell you, vegan, vegetarian food is really good, especially when you put some bacon in it.
Especially when you mix in bacon bits. Ain't that the truth?
It was good.
The vegetarian good is
with
food
bacon.
when you stuff it inside. When you stuff it inside a steak. All right, here we go. Let's see what this tastes like. It says it's perishable.
Try it.
You know what perishable means?
No.
It means it can go bad.
Okay, try it.
Huh?
Okay, try it.
You get dirt on your face.
I don't care.
Ragamuffin. Here we go. She don't care. Here we go. Yeah, I could use some vodka.
I'm not trying it because it has celery in it.
I'm not going to drink that because it's got celery. Okay. It's not too bad. It's got, I don't know what the sweet is. I think the apple has to be the sweet and the kiwi. It's not something I'd go, bartender, around a Belt House Farm Daily Greens for everybody on the house.
On the house, line them up. Shots of green.
Yeah. Boy, that leaves a funny aftertaste. This would be something that if I thought it was really good for me to do, I'd probably take us and slam one of these in the morning before my coffee. And then I drink my coffee. So
I've been doing a glass of
this out of my mouth.
I've been doing a glass of alkaline water with half a lemon squeezed in it first thing in the morning. Then I'll have my coffee with my mushroom.
Yeah,
and I notice the difference.
Does that Daily Greens thing come with gin? Otherwise, it's swamp juice. Says no.
That's right.
Well, you got that, brother. There it is. My mouth tastes very green all of a sudden. I'm serious about that. It's like, my mouth tastes like sweet grass right now, which I love burning as.
It's awesome.
Yeah, I love sweetgrass. A braid of sweetgrass. So, I'm gonna go do something to get rid of this taste out of my mouth. So, folks,
I'm gonna go.
We're gonna call it a night.
Go work on the rest of my Perrier here.
Of your Perrier, which is also much better with something like Scotch or
a little vodka, a little something in there, tequila.
So there you go.
I'm keeping. I'm on about 2 weeks now. Haven't had a beer, and I'm surprised. I thought I would go through some kind of withdrawals, but nope. Seem to be okay. And I'm thinking that because I like IPAs, and it'll probably be a double IPA, knock me on my ass.
No, probably. You know what I like doing, folks? I like when I would always make pancakes this way. We don't make these very often anymore, but because nobody eats breakfast around here. I used to like to make pancakes, and I'd take bananas, and I'd take a fork and I'd squish them all up until they were liquid, practically, slimy liquid, and I'd dump it into the pancake batter. That was always good. So, all right, guys, we're gonna get out of here. Professor Bauer, thank you for being here, brother. And
thanks for letting me stop in. Thanks for letting me stop in. This seems to be a good time for some reason. I'm sitting there all of a sudden. It's like, well, shit, Scotty's on. I might as well see what's happening.
Beer pancakes, says Siani. Banana pancakes. Beer pancakes, maybe.
Oh, yeah.
Good night, Professor Bauer. All right, guys, it's just us. We're going to get out of here. I want to thank you for being here. Thank you for giving me your time and enjoying this with me. I enjoy doing this, and I hope you do too. So, live long and prosper.